this morning. Without going into any details, everybody tonight gets extra credit. Because not only were you a say type and coming on to learn, but you were sumiraf from not doing something else that the rest of the United States of America seems to be doing. I moved my I have a twice weekly Shiur with my boys here in the neighborhood, and I moved the time. But I said, Rabbi, I'm putting you right now, and notice I'm not moving the time because of any other reasons besides I have a share with my friends at a Gottesman show. Chas v'shalom, you should be chaysh with me for any other reason and all that, because believe it or not, I hope they put an end to this narishkeit. But for a while, it was fashionable to make halftime shiur. I kid you not. So if there was ever a novel British attire, there you go. Rabbi Sai. So I wasn't quite trying to handle this because some of you, I can see my friend Shlomo there, and of course the regulars are on in the morning. So some of you are not. So to Chazer in the morning, Chazer is always good, but I don't think you want to hear the same thing totally twice. So to go on to fresh material, also good, but then tomorrow morning, I'll have to start a new thing. I might quite try to do this. I'm going to play it by ear. Let's chazer first, reasonably quickly, what we did this morning, which was we were looking for. First of all, we went through a long list of kriya which was supplemented. And when I forgot a few, which supplemented by all my friends, we ended up with around 10, starting all the way with Shabbos, ending all the way down at the end with Shana Rava Nacht, and then the Siyam of Nisan is much earlier. Siyam Nisan is in the Minhagei Ashkenaz, all the way back to the Marilyn earlier. As far as I know, Shana Rava Nacht is a later tikkun. As far as I know, I'm sure it goes back probably to the times of the Kabbalists and the Rizal, but the theme is earlier. So we did this a long list, and I can't tell you that we're going to be able to speak to each one individually, but we'll try to do as many as we can. So where did the kind of Shabbos come? So we went through the Gemara in Bava Kama that you're staring at, and the Gemara had a dialogue and a stira between two epochs in time, one of them being Ezra and the other one being the Yarchei Rishumais of basically I don't know if we have to make it that complicated. I think we should. It's just easier to the island to get it all on on the website in time. The office has an incentive of doing this because obviously they want to do whatever they can to make the Kallah success. Okay, so the Gemara here asks this stira, and the Gemara resolves it by saying, yes, the original Takana Moshe Rabbeinu, and the second Takana was, in fact, series of Takanas was, in fact, Ezra Sefer, who added all sorts of details and Nihugim. Moshe Rabbeinu was Metakein, Shabbos, and Beis Vehei. Okay, basically, as I said, I want the island to not to spend 15 minutes recording it because that's going to take away from us learning together. I think we can, as I said, let's put our klechus into getting them to put it up earlier, because it'll also solve my problem, because this way I can always say, why don't you just listen to the tape for the morning, and then this way I'll be able to go back and forth even in the morning, because as I said, I'm still not exactly sure. This is the first time we are doing this. The Hakdama Shiur used to be in person, which means that we couldn't get the people from Detroit and Chicago and Eretz Israel and otherwise. So this is certainly the first time we're doing it this way, and the first time we're doing it in night and day, because we need as much time as we can. So the Gemara reconciles this stira. The only place we seem to have this reference in a pasuk to that Takana of Moshe Rabbeinu is a semi-agadic, fully agadic memra of Shloyechu Shleish Yom B'Torah. That we raised several questions. Question number one was, what does that mean? Shloyechu Gimel Yom B'Torah. Essential Shaila Chakir in the Sugya. What is the mechayev of Kriyas Torah? Where we learn it from? We're discussing. What are we learning? Is the shaila? Are we learning about limud Torah? Are we learning about Kriyas Torah? Yes, when you listen to the Megillah, I guess you have to have made Birchas Torah before, because no doubt all the Talmidei know all the drushes in the Gemara and the Sugyas and the Megillah, Daf Yud Gimel through Tezvav, which have hundreds of drushes and the Megillah, so no question that you are going to be thinking about all that before B'Shas Maisa, and therefore, you know, you need to have Birchas Torah because it's a shtickle Torah, true, but that's not the kiyum of Kriyas Megillah. Kriyas Megillah is Presum Nisa, and it's a Kriya Dika Halacha. Question is, what's Kriyas Torah? Is it a Limud Torah Dika Halacha? Is it a Kriya Dika Halacha? Or is it both? That's the central Lamdash here in the Sugya, and the question where it comes from. So, as a important issue, we had who was mistaken this. The Gemara mysteriously says Nevi'im Shebinayhem, and we discussed how the Rambam switches it to Moshe Rabbeinu. I have here the Frankel Rambam, and in the Likutim of Perigid Beis of Hilchos Tefillah, brings here Moshe Rabbeinu Tikkun Yisrael. He references the Gemara in Meruba, and then I looked up to try to see some of the Marmakaimus in this words Nevi'im Shebeinehem, and let me tell you what I found. That this is discussed in Mer Arik in the Imri Yasher. We should have those in the big set of Marmakaimus, which we'll get to, and by the Prima Gadim in the Pesich Kalelis. Regarding the Pesich Kalelis, always tries to analyze what exact type of toikeif something that is called a takana has. What does that takana mean? So when it says Moshe Rabbeinu Tikein, what does that mean? So the Prima Gadim says, even though the word takana is takanas Moshe, does that mean it's a dairaisa? And this is always a tricky and thorny question. A question kailelas. I guess I don't want to say Kallah terakula, but it's a question which is kailel a lot of areas. We have a takana of Moshe Rabbeinu. What power does a takana of Moshe Rabbeinu have? Why isn't it dairaisa? I mean, why is like Tignayev dairaisa? And if Moshe Rabbeinu simultaneously, whether you go to Taris Chaim, it was afterwards, but certainly it was right afterwards. As soon as the Torah was chasuma, then the Kriyas Torah. Or you go with the common understanding of the Gemara that it was b'shas the Dara Midbar, the 40 years. But why doesn't that become a dairaisa?
He can't add a mitzvah. Even Moshe Rabbeinu, Navi, he can't add a mitzvah. He can make a mitzvah with Rabbanim, but he can't make a mitzvah with
Moshe Rabbeinu didn't make this up. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't do anything that would be keneged the Ratzain of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So why was Takanas Ezra, we understand, as Rabbanim? By definition, the Torah was closed. But Moshe Rabbeinu's Takana, Kfida Pshut Pashat, came before the Torah was even opened. So why wouldn't it have a din of dairaisa? I mean, I hear what's your first name?
Berish.
I hear what the Berish is saying. Berish is saying, let's say Moshe Rabbeinu wants to do a good thing. I just talked about the Ilam of Moshe Rabbeinu took his oil, because he wanted Klal Yisrael to come to him, to mechaper the ego, and he wanted them to do tshuva, and he wanted to point out to them, you want to do tshuva, you have to learn Torah, and therefore come on the shiur tonight and don't do anything else marriage. But so Moshe Rabbeinu did this. Does that become a dairaisa? No, because that's a nihug. But here we're talking about takana. A takana is something that was nishrash. I'm going to make the shaila a lot more complicated in a moment when I show you a Gemara at the end of Megillah, which I'm sure you all know. And that's going to raise the ante here, and perhaps make it a little bit more the Gottesman shaila a little bit more complicated. Okay, the maskana of the Kesef Mishnah and the Rebbe Menayach is that Ikar Adin, the Rambam is being Seimech on Yerushalmi because the Bavli is ambiguous. Whether how the Rambam will handle the Kasher of Teres Chaim remains an open question. Maybe the Rambam had to wait till Rabbeinu, his namesake, some Sefer came up with his brilliant pshat that there's two dinim of Kriya Torah. There's the Kriya Shabbai and the Shmi and the Limud HaTorah Shabbai, and we'll take it further in a moment from there to come to some sort of a reconciliation of why we have what part of that takana is Moshe Rabbeinu's. Moshe Rabbeinu's was Torah, and Ezra Sefer was Kriyas Torah. They both coalesced together in the Kriyas Torah, which also has a Limud HaTorah. We'll talk about Berachas Torah before. Why do you have to make Berachas Torah again before Torah? You already made one in the morning. And what happens if you didn't make it in the morning? You ate it with the Berachas Torah. Should you ask the Gabe for Aliyah? I forgot to make Berachas Torah. Oops. Am I yaitza with the Berachas Torah that I'm going to make? Get an Aliyah? Should I ask for an Aliyah so I can say Berachas Torah? Berachas Torah you can say all day, so there's no necessity for that. I'm using it just for illustrative purposes. Al Chopanim, we have to understand a little bit more about this concept of Hachana. The third diak that we had in this issue here was, what does the Rambam mean in the second line when he said, "B'loi shmias haTorah"? There's a long masamatan on this, and there's a whole set of shiurim on this. And some of them our Mekaymis will talk about as Tshuvas Tzemach Tzedek, not about Trevet Tzemach Tzedek, the predecessor from the Gedalia Achrayna, Rabbi Semengel and it's the Einul Matayra, let's see, Pesach Frank and Hart Zvi, Moshe Feinstein. I'm just reading off my list of my Mekaymis that I asked them to prepare for the book. I'm not sure they're going to get all of them in because we don't have enough room, but Moshe Feinstein and a well-known Tshuva and Cheli Beis, Simonai and Beis, and others all speak to this diuk as to whether or not the mitzvah is the shmir, the mitzvah is the kriya, and if the mitzvah is the kriya are the balkaire, who's being mitzi, the balkaire, the aliyah, how does it work? Is it tremeka aina? Who's being yaitz? What mitzvah? And this we're going to have shiurim by Rabbanim Agaidim Kaplan and Chaim in Eretz Yisrael, and that will be part of our core limud. Okay. That was a short tamtis of what we did this morning. And we, as I said, we saw the Kaivi Yeshua, which had a Charif Yisrael to Yerushalmi, since the Rambam is based on Yerushalmi, the Yerushalmi is Shitasai, and the Rambam was Shitasai that you can actually read in the Sefer Torah Chaser, and therefore, because the whole takana was that your nefesh should not be ugum, won't be cheap and shell out a lot of money for a Sefer Torah, a kosher Sefer Torah. That's not applicable when there was no Sefer Torah. Okay, achap. I'm only bringing this to you because it's the Geshmak of art. I'm not telling you, I'm not making any comment on that's the Emes Pshat. In this question remains an open question. The Chum Sefer, Chum Sefer is always the best Paris that I can come up with. We did not finish Chum Sefer. I'd like to do the second paragraph of the Chum Sefer because it's important. So let's move down to the page marked on the bottom right. I guess it's Rav Pesach marked Tez Zayin. It should be about page 6 or 7. I'm not sure which it is. It says Chum Sefer on the top. Keep on going. You gotta move. There you go. You went too fast. Oh, did you? I can't remember. Keep on going. What are we up to here? Yes, keep on going. It's Tez Zayin. Okay, we'll come back to the Magen Avraham in a moment. So the Chum Sefer we saw all the way up till the second paragraph. Hine ha'idna. I want to share this with you. The Rambam, the Chum Sefer asked the kasha, if Targum was such an essential, important part of the package, And the way I would say it, I heard this from Yeshiur Buston, that when you have Kriyas Torah, you have a package of both Torah Sheb'Ksav and Torah Sheba'al Peh. Torah Sheb'Ksav, the Kriya of the Ksav, and the Torah Sheba'al Peh, the Tirgum. Says, what happened to today? We don't have a Targum anymore, so we don't have the Limud HaTorah anymore. We don't have Havanas HaTorah anymore. And not only that, we don't understand the Targum. So Mahi L'cham B'Takanasam, because Achshadar, more people understand Lashon Kodesh, they understand the Targum. This is codified in end of Sif Kuf Mem Hey and the Taisus Megillah. So the Shaila is a halachic Shaila asks some cipher. The Takana, the Targum, was presumably promulgated by Ezra Sefer, who based Tinai. Which Targum they used is not clear, but the Metargum presumably didn't use Targum Uklus, which didn't exist, didn't use Targum Edison, which didn't exist, didn't use Targum Yerushalmi, which didn't exist so much later. But they used a Tirgum into the vernacular. So how will we have the right to be Mevatel this Takana? Ein Bezdin Yarchei Levatel, something that was Niskan with a davar b'shebeminyan, and Ezra was Bezdin was a davar shebeminyan, as long as even if the time for the Takana was batel. So some surface says, if you look at the Taisus Megillah Daf Gimel, Taisus discusses this. It's in our master package. I'm not going to be matric tell now to wait 5 minutes till we get it out of the master package. So let's tell you what Taisus says. Taisus says that even in time of Chazal, they will not matargum everything. And therefore, this yesod that even if batel hatam, loy batel hatakana, is only applicable when it was an ironclad takana all the time, everywhere. Once there was a loophole, not the right word. Once there wasn't universal recognition of the takana for whatever reason, then takana is mevutalable. And the same goes with in Gilui. Why are we not like to be machmer in Gilui? Bismanaseh only anshe meiser machmer in this, and the answer is because the Gilui was not universally accepted all the time and in all places. It was the ikar takana connected eres of a nachash. So if there's no nachash around, if you live in an apartment in the in the Flatbush, presumably there aren't too many snakes around. So why would you be scared about Gilui? Okay, so if the time isn't there, since it wasn't universally accepted, says Tait the Magen Avraham and Taf Samaches, not necessarily could be mevutal. So you look in the Shulchan Aruch and Reish Pei Hey, in the Seif what's near to Shemosh and Mikrech Targum, the Shulchan Aruch says you can use Rashi. Everybody knows this, and Rashi is as chashuv as Targum, which is a tremendous chiddush. Targum is a Chazal. Rashi is a Rishon. Why Rashi? Why not have an Ezra? Why not somebody else? And the answer is Pashut. Since we don't understand Targum, somebody's writing me, listen, Morris, and I say this to everybody, it's very hard for me, I don't know, the other Maggid Shir have mastered this, but they're much bigger about Kishan Islam. It's hard for me to read the chats and keep the flow going at the same time. It's easy. No, listen. No. I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm telling you fakir. If Mordechai is on, and I believe he is, he will automatically enable everybody's mic. And if you have a question, in my experience, not some of my other chaburas that I have here, everybody screaming at each other from the beginning then until go. It's not the case here. So anybody, please, is invited to open up your mic, ask me a question, and I'll do the best of my ability to answer. If I can't, I'll either dodge the question, or I'll tell you straight out I can't answer. But please feel free. So I will try to answer your question. If you give me a second just to finish the thought. So Rashi is as chashuv as Targum, and the reason is because simply we don't understand Targum. So this is a case of batel atakana, batel atam, because we know from the Gemara and Megillah that there were places they were not metargim. The Mishnah, there's Maisa Bila, there's a Dikra B'lai metargim. So there was already non-universal, that's the right word, non-useful, not acceptance, but non-universal.
Exception is the word you're looking for.
Yeah, there are exceptions, okay, but there was non-universal adoption of the Tirugum process. Once there was non-universal, batlatam, you can be mevatel the minute. Now he says a very interesting time, a very interesting thing. Ki akriya hazu mikar niskan me'ezra be'ein mevin. Rashulim Megarim Kamen, Vavatarti. Of Lahalbish Hatayra Bimalbish Nechar Betzibur, Loitikain Ezra. Avlay Davish Hanitkan Beminian Bechamakim Yesh Levatla Yidare Gam Hem Levinu. So I'm thinking about this, Rabbi say, whenever you see something like this, Nichsam Sefer, either in the Truvis or in other writings of Sefer, you know viscerally, if anybody knows anything about Jewish history, Nichsam Sefer was talking, he had a target here, right? So who is Nichsam Sefer's who were the Chasam Sefer's mortal enemies, and Lulei the Chasam Sefer, many of us wouldn't be from today. I would say anybody who's Meitzah is from Austro-Hungary, which is a significant percentage of Klal Yisrael, wouldn't be from, because Kallah would have taken over the entire that entire area of Europe, and we wouldn't be here today for sure. So the Chasam Sefer was talking to somebody. What exactly he means here, I'm not sure. But ein lahalbish hapasuk b'nigum in acher she'ein eshtayich l'loshen zeh. Not sure what it means. It means don't use English. What does he mean by a nigun? I'm not sure. Don't use different ta'amim than Ezra gave. But whatever it is, it's a crack against, no question to me, that it's a crack against the reformers, because Ezra was metakein.
It's frozen.
He lost his bandwidth and probably got knocked off the Wi-Fi. Be back on
Zoom Lutova.
always.
You guys.
Anyway, since he's off right now, so if we could get the Shiur in like an hour or two later on the Zoom, on the website, they'd be utilized before the next one. Otherwise, you miss it. People are going to be traveling Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, the Hachana. They're going to miss those Shiur, parts of them. They can listen to them Friday if they're already up. But if, like today's could have been reviewed during the afternoon if you missed it in the morning, but it wasn't up.
It's a great idea, but it's an office issue.
No.
Down one.
I had an office also. It was an office issue. We changed the office issue. We made it a non-issue.
First, there was handling this at the Aguda office is no longer there.
Yeah, I know. Whatever. No one's going to listen to them next week. That's the point. Is it 4 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning by the rabbi, by Rabbi Gottesman?
No, he's in New York.
I thought he was in Eretz Yisrael.
No.
Oh, okay.
Not yet.
Came to the conclusion of the Malach of you know who was upset that I was making chayzik in them, and he fought back and he took off my I don't know what. Okay, I hope everybody's still here. I apologize. Not sure what happened, but whatever. Okay, I'll call upon him. This is what the Chasam Sefer says: not to be malbish to Torah in malbish nechar, but tzibur, and that already goes against the takana. Okay, so at least Al Kapanim, we now know more importantly, going back to the Etzim Var, that there's limited Torah, it's Kriyas Torah. Rashi is talking about the midst of Kriyas Torah, it's Ganes Ezra, and therefore there are no steers in the Rashi. Comes out, according to some Sefer, that Ezra's Takana was on the Kriya, even if you don't understand it. Now, how does that help on the limit part if you don't understand it? So, okay, so Sefer says that is taken care of by the Tirgum. What do we do today if you don't understand the Tirgum? So you learn Rashi. So Shemais really becomes more important because if you don't understand everything, and this is not such a big leap to say that not everybody understands every single thing that they hear, and I can read you many psukim this week's parsha that are obscure. So that explanations to them, whether it's the Targum, whether it's Rashi, we wouldn't understand what's going on. So maybe you're to the Chi of Kriya, but maybe according to Sefer, you would not be to the Chi of Limud. Another issue is here when he say that the Gemara Baba Kama says Ezra's matakin Shabbos and Mincha. So Rashi, the Gemara says because of Yeshvei Kranais. We learned that this morning. And I said there are several Pirushim and Yeshvei Kranais. One of those guys who are so busy in the morning, doing whatever they're doing with full, absolute dedication that they can't learn Torah. So according to this Hachana, the Kriya, it makes sense that Shabbos Mincha somehow can make up for a little bit of lima, but how can it make up for a din of Kriya? What does that accomplish when you are leaning on Mincha? If it's a din of Tashlumim, because you're after all Shabbos Mincha, you're proactively being mashlam the next week's parsha in case you're going to miss it. That's a question which really goes to this core issue of whether there's Tashlumim and Kriyas Torah. I'm just bringing you up this now because it does dovetail a little bit with some Sefer. The Magen Avram, go back a page. In the beginning of Kuf Lamed Hey,
They say a Yarchei with Kriyas Shema Limud Torah. So if one doesn't understand Kriyas Shema, you're telling me he's not Yarchei Limud?
so my entire, if I would get up here now, I used it this morning. I don't know if you were on this morning. If you
I
go
was.
to a shir, you are. So you heard my mashal. You go into a shir in Chinese, you Yarchei Limud Torah?
No, but that's Chinese. It's not Lashon Kodesh. There's a big difference.
Oh, so you're mechadish that the din of limud yaitza, even with lashon hakodesh, big chiddush. It's a big enough chiddush to say that yaitza didn't kriya. They didn't kriya with that understanding. They tell me that ilu namar b'chol lasha, and it doesn't say ilu lemdim b'chol lasha, even if you don't understand it. Maybe mitam musar dikavart. It's okay to say that if you come to a base measure, you know what's going on. Just sitting in the base measure, I had the. I had this discussion today with some of my colleagues because, to make a long story short, I told them that one of them, Magide Shur, that we have, it just be a schuss just to be in the same room with this person, whether people understand it, don't understand it, do understand the language, don't understand the language. But yeah, maybe there's a schuss to be in the same person room as the grace of God with Torah. But I don't know if that person will tell you that you're Mekayim with a Torah. No, sorry. You have to understand what's going on. I mean, the Torah was given to learn. Learn means understand. How do you know that? Every single day. We're on the spout all the time. Same Bilamado Bina. You have to understand what's going on. Otherwise, you don't have.
So what's the Indian of Kriya then? What did you need Kriya for? Just have Limud. What's the Indian of Kriya?
So that's exactly what we're going to be talking about. What is the Indian of Kriya? Trying to give you a lumdish background to a mitzvah. The mitzvah has two mechayvim. There's the Indian of Kriya. Kadosh Baruch Hu and Ezra wanted the Torah to be read, and there's also in the Talmud Torah. I don't know if I were you, I should ask me the kasha reverse. I didn't know the Kriyas Torah is limited Torah. I thought Kriyas Torah. Where's Rambam put the Kriyas Torah? Which hilchos are Kriyas Torah in the Rambam? Where do you find them? No, what am I talking to? Barish. Where do you find them?
In
Hilchais.
Tefillah.
Right, tefillah. So I would think, you saw it this morning, so I would think that Kriyas Torah is a tefillah like a chelik. The chelik from Kriyas. Everybody knows you go to shul, you have Kriyas Torah. Did you come into shul on Shabbos morning, last Shabbos morning, and say, today I'm going to be kind of mitzvah of limud Torah of the big Kohana? Maybe you did, probably not, because people don't generally think that way. But now you know to think that way. Because now you know that Kriyas Torah is a kiyum of limud Torah. That's cool for what we're discussing. We're just starting here, so you'll have to wait a little bit till we get much further. I want to show you the Magen Avraham, and then maybe I'll show you the Godim, which I mentioned because it follows sequentially to the Magen Avraham. So the Magen Avraham here, this is the beginning of Kriyas Torah Kuf Lamed Hey, right? So the Magen Avraham here, we have time for the Shiur. Let's see. Trying to find my copy so I don't have to read too close to the screen. I already was admonished this morning, properly so. Yeah, state does in Mechaber. Mechaber starts, say the Kriyas Torah, you have Commission Sheni, because the Mechaber starts with Beis Vei before Shabbos, because Beis Vei happens before Shabbos. Says the Magen Avraham. Isa Barif. What do we know about the Kriyas Torah at all? This is a Rif in Megillah, which we have in our package. Somewhere, Ma'ishtik Nisrael Shikar B'Torah, Shabbasais, Em Taivim, Chel Shalmayid, and what was the last one we mentioned this morning was Chaydish. Ezra Tikain, Shlishi, Sheni, Chamishi, Ubemincha. Three people on Monday and Thursday, and Michvat Tzarechiyah asked the Magen Avraham Kasha. Astira. He asked the Kasha, here it is, that Shlishi Ambalei Taira and Ezra was Matake Mincha. So he says, in addition to the teretz that Ed Taisis to this Gemara, Taisis in the beginning of Brachas, beginning of the second page Brachas, Taisis Reish Peg Beis Brachas says that Ezra was Matakin Kriyas Torah and asks the Bach, what about the Gemara Merubah? It says it was the kind of Nevi'im Shabineim. Getting into that discussion again. Says the Magen Avraham. In answer to the Bach's kasha, that the kavanah of the Rif was that Ezra was taking the minyan kriyim and beis and hay, and therefore, when Moshe Rabbeinu was mataking the minyan kriyim, he did that only for Shabbos 7, Yom Tov 5, Chodesh 4. That comes all the way back to Moshe Rabbeinu. But Ezra went further and took care of Monday and Thursday. Says the Magen Avraham, Kivin. So we see that the Gimel Kriyim on Moshe Chayil is what the kind of says, right? And everything else is Moshe Rabbeinu. Says the Magen Avraham. Taisus, I like Nachodat was there. You because the Kim kind of Nevi'im can Leishayach remember the crowd. So the guard is like, how can there be a Kodesh Nevi'im if Vahayu, the pasuk Vahayu Ala Avecha refers to Sefer Torah, Kriyas Torah? How could it be? Can't be because it was only a later takana. You can't buy stickum in that crib b'shabbat yadr shchayv shchalamayit chem mash Rambam ubismak. The I go to look some cipher on the spot here. It's digested here in the fancy print here of the Friedman. They're right there in the under the Levush Yisrad on the Eitzim Mefarshim. Okay, pull it over to the right. Pull it over to the right, and pull it down a little bit or whatever. Okay, and it says here. It says here like this. Ayin Pirish Rashi. What does it mean? So l'chayra, what he means to say is that Rashi says Ezra Tikain and Shemikar Mesheni Chamishi Kamavur Baba Kama, and there the Gemara says that Nevi'im were Matakein Kriya, not Ezra Sefer, and the teretz of the Magen Avraham doesn't apply here. The Gemara didn't answer kasha to the stira, and this stira, according to some Sefer, says survives. We see a teretz to this when we discuss space for hay separately. Bring this up here because it is on the daf. The Pri Megadim that I referenced earlier about the Hachana is brought all the way here in the end of this package on the page that's marked Chav Tes. The Pri Megadim here in this Psicha Kaileles has long discussions of what's the Raisa and what is the Rabbanon. So on Chav Tes, he has Chavtes, he has in the Psicha Kaileles, he follows it up in the Eshel, and he talks about all the different types of things that are different categories. And he says, Haravis divrei Kabbalah muskar b'neviim b'ksuvim. Keep on going. It's on page Chaf Tes, almost there. Back a little bit. One page back. Okay, right there. A little bit further up. Okay, beautiful. Haravis divrei Kabbalah muskar b'neviim. So the Megadim is struggling. What is this? What is this? What Hachana Moshe Rabbeinu? What taikev does it have? What is it? So he says that's Divrei Kabbalah, similar to Einik Shabbos. Shalshudas who ate this week? Yes. You change your clothes for Shabbos? Yes. Those are Divrei Kabbalah as referenced in a pasuk. And Hallel. It's Machlekes to Ram and the Ravid, but let's assume for the moment that it's Divrei Kabbalah. And then he says, we look at the Mishnah, because Mishnah, Yesh Eseh Midivrei Kabbalah, having Rabbanan Leimin HaTorah. And Eseh Midivrei Kabbalah is Midrabanan, not so fast. The Simach Tzedek, the aforementioned Gadol HaPaiskim, says, Einik Shabbos did Daraisa. Now what? So we have all sorts of problems. What about Kriyas Torah? She says, Kriyas the Tikkun Nevi'im. What does that mean? So the Pri Megadim says this is like Divrei Kabbalah. Why? So he has to, for the stira in the Rambam, in the Gemara between Nevi'im and Moshe Rabbeinu. So he says it was a committee. Why Moshe Rabbeinu needed a committee is not clear, but he says that Moshe Rabbeinu Tikkun Ze'im Nevi'im She'imoi. Moshe Rabbeinu need the Nevi'im She'imai, as he saw in the Kesef Mishnah. Moshe Rabbeinu was the Rabban Shalkol Nevi'im. All the world came from him. What did Moshe Rabbeinu need all these other people? Not sure. Could be. I was thinking he and I senes, because if it was Moshe Rabbeinu's Takana, it means the Torah wasn't finished. So if the Torah wasn't finished, and it was only really finished of the Man Amar Chasuma Nitna, Mamash of Moshe Rabbeinu's death. I was just thinking this B'derech Drush, so I don't know if this is an accurate pshat. I'm just putting it on the table. Maybe Moshe Rabbeinu decided to bring in other things he didn't need to have any help. Because Baruch Hu told him, and everybody understood it was Shchinim Daberes B'tay Groinai, and let's take it from there. Didn't know him that you don't need any help. Any help is counterproductive. Here, it was at the kind of Moshe Rabbeinu, because Moshe Rabbeinu himself saw that they needed to limit a Torah. The Torah itself was going to be a mitzvah, the Iraisa given by Kadosh Baruch Hu. So Moshe Rabbeinu's takana of Moshe Rabbeinu didn't invent the Torah, but he invented, as we said earlier in the morning, from all the Marsha and the Rishonim, that having 3 days without Torah, no good. It's magzik, a chazaka of Bikla Torah. This is Moshe Rabbeinu's anfal. So Moshe was coming to make you a very aggressive takana. Kriyas Torah, Shabbos, Mele Elamis time, Yantiv, Mele Elamis time, every day. Big aggressive takanas, and if it's a midin Talmud Torah, everybody has a right to say. Some certain people even right to say, "Ich darf nicht sagen Kriyas Torah." I'm going to daven at home. Why? Because I'm going to know the next year, over the next few days, to know it's the Chayva Sibur. As long as somewhere in Detroit they're laying Kriyas Torah on Potter, they don't need me unless there's only 9 other people in the whole town. Then I got to schlep to shul. And if it's there's a bit of Talmud Torah, so I'll take out my Rambam and I'll learn Hilchos Paraduma. I learn Hilchais in this game. Why do I have to learn what you're telling me to learn every morning? When Moshe Rabbeinu understood these kind of approaches don't work, so he needed it to survive his patira, even though the Torah wasn't finished yet. In other words, even if he had a finished product to show everybody and said, "Listen, this is what the Baruch wants you to learn," and I'm telling you, I'm creating a Daf Yomi program that takes place 3 times a week. Or 4 times a week, nanicha. But he didn't have what to show them because the Torah wasn't finished yet. So he needed help with the next star. The next star were presumably for sure younger than him, even though there was a Canaan, and they certainly were junior to him. And he wanted them to carry on the work of his takana. I have absolutely no raya to this other than other than my kash. Doesn't mean my teretz is right. You know, one of the big tenets in Brisk is that if you have a kasha, you don't have a teretz too. The kasha could be good, but the teretz could be a daichik. So I don't know if this is the teretz. The Pri Megadim brings from Rama Lamed in Shalos Teshuvos Mishpat Tzedek, which comes brought in the Knesset Agdala, and the Shiur Knesset Agdala, and all sorts of places. And he says that at the Katan bar Chinuch Midrabanan, a Gadol mechuyev b'divrei Kabbalah, and therefore a Katan cannot be mitzi a Gadol because there are two separate gradations of Chiyuv, like we have the problem on Mikra Megillah. One is divrei Kabbalah, one is Drabanan, etc. And therefore he says, this we know that a Katan can't be mitzi a Gadol increase in Megillah. In Chanukah, you can be mitzi with Ner Chanukah. So he says, no problem. Ner Chanukah is Drabanan Mamash. There's no less of Divrei Kabbalah, whereas Megillah has Divrei Kabbalah attached to it because it was said Baruch HaKodesh, and therefore it's a different Madrega than the Rabbanans, and therefore a Katan is only Mechuyev Midin Chinuch Mid Rabbanan, cannot be Mitzi Eide Ayraisa. Other important principle the Pri Megadim says, Shagasari discusses this too in various places, that Divrei Kabbalah has a din of Torah legabi chumra legabi safek da iraisa the chumra. Says the Pri Megadim, and you're staring at it, that's machmirim b'sfeikoi. You can't give malchus on it. Okay, can't give malchus because it's not a the iraisa. And then he goes into an issue here of Hilchais Megillah, which would require too much of a background for us to go into now. For our purposes, let's leave it that the takana with the Sharnavim is Divrei Kabbalah, and it's not Mida Iraisa, or maybe takana with Nevi'im, as the Teres Chaim says, and therefore by definition it is not Iraisa. Okay, let's move on. Let's begin one more issue here. Trying to pick which one I'll be able to finish. Give me a second while I leaf through what I think I can do the next few moments. Okay, one of the battlegrounds here to determine, well, let's see the Mishnah Berurah first on page Chav Beis, and we'll go quickly through the Hadam of the Mishnah Berurah, and then we'll come back to bring some of the rayas on the mahus of the side of the Torah from the halachas of a katan and a isha. So Mishnah Berurah beginning of Kuf Lamed Hey, similar, which hopefully you'll be familiar with by the end of the next couple of weeks. He says in his Hadama, as he often does, Kasav Rambam, Mishtikun Ben Yisrael, and Ezra. I'm just glossing it through because we saw all this inside. And he brings the Yerushalmi. So, interestingly enough, all these Mefarshim we've seen till now, when it comes to Shabbos, at least, we haven't gotten to Yantiv yet, but when it comes to Shabbos, seem to omit another Makar, and that's the Gemara and Megillah Daf Lamed Beis Amud Aleph, the last 3 lines of Masechtas Megillah. Can we conjure it up somehow? Not sure exactly where it is. In these Marmakaimis, it's in our big book, but going to the big book is going to take a huge amount of time to download it. Rav Mordechai, just make sure that Pesach has the access to the whole book because we're going to need it in the course of the week. But Pesach, maybe you can conjure up through your magic just the Gemara there, because I have to show the Olam that we got a big lacuna here in our sources. So the Gemara, it's not in this package that I can tell you. It's in the big package. I don't remember that it's right here on the base. So let's go see the Gemara. See if you can come up in Megillah Daf Lamed Beis Amud Aleph, because I have to learn this Gemara with Olam, and so we can see how to figure it out. Okay, those of you who have not watched this show before, you can see how Pesach can maneuver around Kol Torah Kula here within a few seconds. I know I need to stuff if possible. There we go. Okay, so the last few lines of the Gemara talks about, lo and behold, at the kind of Moshe Rabbeinu, Tana Rabbanan. V'yidar Moshe is me'adei Hashem b'nei Yisrael, Mitzvasim shinkain Isai kol echad ve'echad b'zmanai. Tan Rabbanan. So you'll ask me, why am I bringing this Gemara? So if you look in the Rashi Taka limits it to Idabra Moshe Esmayade Hashem or Bnei Yisrael. It's a din in Hilchos Yantif. And then the Gemara ties it, we'll come back to this Rashi at another point, but the Gemara ties it to why am I telling this to you, Legabe Takanas of Shabbos? The answer to that is because there are Yesha Imrim that another require for all of this is just as Moshe Rabbeinu was metaking Kriyas HaTorah on Mayadam Midin, this Vaydavar Moshe's Mayad Hashem B'nei Yisrael, we'll see separately what the Mechayev of Kriyas HaTorah Mayadam is. So too, in the same set of Takanos, Moshe Tikin Lehem Al Yisrael, I see, okay, I didn't know who's in charge. Moshe Tikin Lehem Yisrael, the same set of Takanos, at the same time, Moshe Rabbeinu was also metaking Kriyas HaTorah and Shabbos. Now you'll say, but they're fundamentally different because the Gemara here is talking about the takana of Kriyas HaTorah on Yantif, which is tied to the Kriyas HaTorah of the day, and you read the day, which is Mena Ma'era, and as we all know, Shabbos is not that case because what the Tarshim Shabbos have to do with the beginning of Adar, Rishai, nothing. And as a fact, as we all know, the takanas of how to divide it up were evolved over the centuries, and they were different, and maybe in Babel they read something totally different, so it can't be tied to the Shabbos. Nevertheless, it's striking that we have Moshe Tikkun Yisrael, Mistaver, or Moshe Rabbeinu made takana A, made takana B. Mistaver, that if it was according to the Pashup Pshat right away, maybe Moshe Rabbeinu made this takana right away too. We don't know. We know Vaydavar Moshe B'nei Hashem took place in Parshas Emor. When exactly did this kriya that HaKadosh Baruch Hu told them to do this? When in the chronology of the Midbar did it take place? Not clear because the timing in the Torah is not 100% sure, and Chazal are not dispositive about any of these things too. But I'm just showing you another Makar, certainly for Yontif, maybe Shabbos and this, and we'll see how that works. Okay, in order to understand a little bit better the issue of whether or not the Mechayev, where it comes from, whether or not it is limited Torah or not, it would make sense to go to see which actors are not necessarily included in Kriyas Torah. And once you understand which actors are not included, you'll be able to understand who is included, and therefore what the Mechayev is. So if you look in the Mechaber in Reish Pei Beis, right here on Yud Ches, this is the print which comes out of the Yishulis Yankov, the Lemberger Rav. Actually, let's start here on page Zion on the bottom, which is the Mechaber in Reish Pei Beis and Shabbos. We'll get to Shizak in a second. So the Mechaber says, Hakal Elam in Yeshiva, Afil Yeshiva Katan Sheyadelim Yivarchem. Yeah, don't get too excited, Rabbi Sai, because hey, all of a sudden we have, the Shaisa Kaisel here. No, the page is marked Zion on the bottom. Yeah, everybody, Isha is allowed to be in the Shiva Kruyim. Yes, Mikra Din, the Gemara says she is. Page 4. However, and a cotton too, as long as he is page 4. Page 4. But the cotton is also allowed. Amar Chachamim, Isha Leitikra, Nekvayda Tzibur, etc. Says Ramah, I go. If you're missing one or two, okay, but a whole tzibur of ladies, a whole tzibur of mekanim, absolutely not. Then you have a knani, and then it goes into some other issues which are covered at tzibur, which we're going to get to later. The Magen Avraham has a shaila. When the Mechaber says, based on the Gemara, that Isha is Eilim in Shiva, why? Why? Is it because an Isha is Mechuyev in Kriyas Torah, but a Isha is Pater Milimud Torah? Ferish Gemara in Kedushin, Mishinanto Levanecha V'Lei Livneisecha. So if the Mechayiv of Kriyas Torah is Limud HaTorah, how can a lady be included in this issue? Or maybe not. Maybe she's part of a Kriyas Torah, and nevertheless, somehow there's a Hachana, the Chazal allowed women to be mitzaref to the minyan shiva. Look at the Magen Avraham. That cost it. Then currently cutting limiting gimel ava currently limiting design. Linear. He goes on to Kayhanim. Let's skip down to the where it's sideline on the left side. If a Isha is allowed to be called to the Torah, then she should be. She has to be mechuyev Kriyas Torah. But otherwise, what's she doing here? I faked among the Ramakasha. We just got finished learning with you that the one of the two mechayiv of the home this Kriyas Torah is limud Torah, and an Isha is not chayiv limud Torah. Says the Magen Avraham, fascinating teretz. Yesterday's daf, Gimel, all the way at the end of the daf, the Gemara says, why are Nashim coming to Mechuyev and Hakel? Hakel, Nashim Taf. Nashim Lamivayim. So Lishmaya, they're not Mechuyev Medin Talmud Torah Shabbai, but who says Hakel Talmud Torah? Hakel is a Musa Drasha. Yeah, the Gemara's Maskan is. So that's why the Mechuyev, because they have a din of Shmiya. Where does this come from? When we in other words, the Magen Avraham rejects a possibility of them being Mechuyev Midin Talmud Torah because they're simply not Mechuyev in Talmud Torah. Says the Magen Avraham, where does this come from? A Taisis in Rosh Hashanah. However, look at this, says the Magen Avraham. I found a Masechta Sefer. Masechta Sefer says, Anashim Chayava is the Shmaya Kriyas Torah Anashim. And not only that, one of the yesaitis for the takana of the Matar game is for the ladies. Wow. The Khan says the Magen Avraham, maybe ruefully, maybe not. No, go Anashim, let's say it's chutza. I don't know, they're mechuyev, not mechuyev, but look at the minute, the women leave and they don't stick around for Kriyas Torah. Adkan Divrei among the Ram, which of course is a shikol tzarichin. Says the Yeshua Yankov, where's this mitzvah of Shmir come from? And if there is a mitzvah of Shmir, why are they walking out? Why aren't the women all coming to listen to Kriyas Torah all the time? Okay, and even the biggest sadekises are not machber and Kriyas Torah. Says the Yeshua Yankov, we'll close with this. Phil Isha, say from Magen Avraham the stapek and Nashim Chayav is Shmai Kriyas Torah. Says the Yeshua Yankov, Lemberger Rav, if the Yisayt of the mitzvah is limited Torah, as the Gemara says, Yalka Gimel Yambelei Torah, so what's the Chayav of Nashim? Nashim Apater. So listen to what he said, a tremendous chiddush. The only Chiyuv that Nashim should be Mechuyev is Shabbos Mincha. Why? Because Shabbos Mincha is Yarchei Kranais. And what does Yarchei Kranais mean? Okay, one pshat is the guys who run business all the time. The other pshat is stop. The guys on the street hacking around, wasting time, just stop chattering. No, we don't want Nashim to chatter either. Nashim Mechuyev and Ilchais, the Lashon Hara doesn't what does it matter. Nothing good comes generally out of chattering. Bring them to shul, listen to Kriyas Torah. Unbelievable. Says the look inside. She's one of the bottom comments. Where does this come from? She says, I'll tell you a chiddush. Ezra Tikin Karmin Shabbos, Bezel, Lab me Tam Limited Turka, see the Efshed Af Nashim Bachlal, Chiddush Nashim are not Mechuyev in Kriyas Torah of Shabbos, Mincha, even of Shabbos during the day, even though Magrav says, why not? There's some sort of a din, undetermined, unclear din of Shmiyah. Maybe the Mechuyev in Shabbos Mincha, Dover Shazeh, really like Nahagu. To walk out, they surely were not naig, as far as I know, the Nashim to go to Mincha on Shabbos afternoon to hear Kriyas Torah.
Also, it's very strange that she can't be oile b'Shabbos v'Mincha, but she could be oile b'Shachis. She could be oily when she's not
He
chayiv.
doesn't say you can't be able to. You can I don't
That's
know. Why? Because they're not
Gemara-
gimel. You mean they
Yeah,
can't be
the
part of the
Gemara.
gimel.
Yeah, the Gemara says.
The gimel, you can't be part of the gimel, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I hear it. Very strange. The Maggid of Rome is shver, but the Maggid was telling you a lumdus. So okay, it's come upon us to understand the lumdus. The Lember Garov, the Shizak of Zichar shver, because it's a chiddush atzum. Shazel loy re'inu v'loy shamanu. Ad kan Rabbi Sai. Any other questions? Let me take a look at the chat. Whoops, I don't see anything. Let's see. Okay, Rabbi Sai, thank you very much. The big one came on. Yeah, okay, Rabbi Sai, listen, I'm sorry, I have to do this. We need help with our two siyumim. We'd like to make two siyumim, so one in Megillah for the whole Elam, whoever's coming, and one on Moed Katan, Yuchad to the Elam of the Zoom Shiurim. We're almost there, I think. I don't know exactly what the spreadsheet looks like. We're missing about 6-7 blot in Moed Katan, which Shasakul Chazer. But Megillah, I think, is running behind, so kindly respond to that. Also, those of you who are regulars and hear from Rabbi Weiss, Rabbi Kallah every week, we're trying to put together some money as for a little Lakar type to buy them a small silver gift. We're putting the money together from the Ilam. Anybody would like to send in a suggested donation of $36, these two powerhouses who have learned with us now. I made a cheshbon because we've learned, believe it or not, Kemat every single week, Halamoid, Erev Shabbos, till Erev Pesach. That adds up to a lot. It's been 2 years. That's 700 plus days. That's more than 100 weeks. I've said almost 100 shiurim for us. A lot of shiurim, everybody said. So if you want to aggregate it out to the amount, everybody should chip in 50 cents a shiur. No, that's how the chesed works. 33 cents a shiur, not a lot of money. I'll see everybody tomorrow morning who can come on at 11 o'clock, and we'll try to continue. I guess we'll start Chavis Tzibur, Chavis Yachid. I don't know. There's still a lot more to do on the Akdama. I'll decide late tonight to see how we handle it. Everybody have a good night. Yeah,
Thank you.